Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Pearson, and welcome to the United States Wrestling Officials Association Referee Webinar Program. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss referee mechanics. More specifically, we're going to discuss basic movements of the referee on the mat. Now, as we strive for technical proficiency on the mat as referees, movement is oftentimes overlooked as not being very important to the overall goal of technical proficiency. However, movement is the fundamental foundation that our technical proficiency and sound mechanics are built upon. Everything we do as a referee on the mat is initiated by some type of a movement. So, with that said, let's get into what movement is. Okay, let's take a look at mat layout as it pertains to referee movements on the mat. Hotbed of coals. What is the hotbed of coals? Well, this is a concept that was taught to me years ago by Mr. Ken Berger as he was tutoring me and instructing me on the ways of being a referee and moving around the mat efficiently and effectively. The hotbed of coals is an area between the chairman and the judge, from the judge position all the way to the chairman position. This is the hotbed of coals. This is an area that as referees, we want to try as much as possible to stay out of. This is an area that the chairman and the judge can maintain visual contact with each other. Now, as referees, we can transit the hotbed of coals moving through, but we need to move through quickly so we're not blocking one of our teammates' view. Now, if the action occurs, you've got a fall, a situation where you're going to have a fall, by all means, plant yourself there, look in, call the fall, absolutely. But as you're moving around the mat, just moving in relation to the action, you want to try to stay out of the hotbed of coals as much as possible. Breaking the mat into quadrants. Well, very simply, we're going to break the mat into quadrants. Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2, 3, and Quadrant 4. Now, where the wrestlers are at on the mat, in which quadrant, that's going to define what teammate you're going to team up with. So on our video here, on our picture here, our wrestlers are up in Quadrant 1. So I'm going to position myself down in here, in Quadrant 1. So I'm looking this angle. My judge, who I am teaming with, because the wrestlers are closer to the judge, I'm going to team up with the judge. He'll have an opposite view. My chairman is going to have an across the mat view. So I've got 3 separate views on one action. Now this gives us as a team multiple looks. So hopefully when an action occurs based on our angles, we're going to make the correct calls. Now, as I'm sitting in this position here up in Quadrant 1, if our wrestlers move down into Quadrant 2, I in turn am going to move down into Quadrant 2. And now my teammate is going to be, you got it, the chairman. So the chairman is going to watch the action. I'm going to angle for this action, and then my judge will have a cross mat view. So we're still maintaining 3 different views on the single action. Now, breaking the mat, we broke the mat into quadrants. Now we're going to put clock positions where you got 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, all right, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock here. All right, this area in here, and then 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock, this area in here. All this area is mine. I can work all this area and move freely in this area. So essentially, what have I done? Well, look at this. What is this? That's your hotbed of coals right there in the middle. So my quadrants are there. I know what quadrant I'm in. I know what clock position I'm in, and I know I'm staying out of the hotbed of coals, so I can keep my chairman, my judge, I can keep them focused on the mat, not focused, but their vision is not impeded by me getting in their way. Now, a good way of ensuring that the judge and the chairman, their vision is not impeded by my movements, I'm always going to try to maintain a triangle with the chairman and the judge. So if I'm over here and essentially we're in quadrant 1, and I'm going to build a triangle, chairman, judge. I've got vision with the judge. I have visual with the chairman, and we're keeping the wrestlers inside that triangle. Now, what this does is it gives us 3 separate views, 3 separate angles, but it also enables me to non-verbally communicate through looks with the judge and with the chairman. And the more skilled you become in nonverbal communication, the better you're going to be working with your judge and your chairman, because you can pass a lot of information by just looking and types of looks and things like that, non-verbally communicating with your teammates of what you're going to call, what you're looking at calling. That will really help out. And keeping the wrestlers in there will enable you to non-verbally communicate with your teammates. You need to be aware of, as you're doing this, you need to be aware of your relationship, your position in relationship to the judge, chairman, and the clock. Okay, so if you're working up in this area here and you're getting into a time critical phase of that bout, all right, last thing you want to do is, you're looking this way, is to turn your back to the wrestlers to look at the clock. That's when a punch is going to happen. That's when a fight is going to occur, as soon as you turn your back. What you want to do is you're going to want to move and come around. So now you're on the other side of the mat looking through the wrestlers at the clock and keeping your position in relation to the clock sound. Now this is going to be important when you get in those critical phases of the bout, the end of the period, the end of the bout. You're getting into a passivity type situation. You got a 0-0 bout and you're getting close to the 1 minute. The last thing you want to do is have your back to the clock trying to make that call. You want to get yourself in a solid position, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're here looking at the clock and boxing out the judge as he's trying to watch and evaluate the action as well. And like I say in the last bout, stay out of the hotbed of coals and don't block the chairman or the judge's view. Okay, so we've got the mat all laid out. We know how we're moving around. We know we've got the mat in quadrants. We know if the wrestlers are in one quadrant. Quadrant 1, we're working with the judge. Quadrant 2 or 3, we're working with the chairman. How we're moving, how we're positioning ourselves, clock positions, etc. So how do we start a bout? How do we begin this process? Well, starting the first or second period, there's a few critical things that you need to accomplish, you need to do. As a referee, the first and foremost thing you need to do before you ever start the first period or start the second period after the 30-second bout is ensure the judge and chairman are ready before you blow that whistle. Okay, there's nothing worse as a chairman to be dealing with scoring issues, finishing up paperwork from the previous bout, and the referee walks on the mat, shakes hands, get the wrestlers ready, and blows the whistle, and you're looking down at the table, not seeing the mat. That's very disrespectful on the referee's part, and it shouldn't happen. Out of respect for the chairman, after you check your wrestlers in and you're ready to go, you first ask the judge if he's ready. Once the judge acknowledges he's ready to start the bout, then you turn, face the chairman, and ask the chairman if he is ready. In the 2 pictures down below, you're going to see, this is my friend from Greece, a very good referee. He is turned, this is the judge right here. He is turning to the judge, and you can barely see his hand right there. But he's raising his hand, facing the judge. By visually raising the hand, he is asking, is the judge ready to begin? The judge should acknowledge, either raising a white paddle or some type of visual indicator. I typically will raise my hand back at the referee saying, yes, I'm ready, and I'll shake my hand, yes. Once the judge acknowledges he's ready, my friend turns and he's facing the chairman, and he, as you see right here, he's got that hand up and he's asking the chairman if he's ready. He is waiting for the acknowledgement from the chairman. If at this point here, if the chairman is not ready, don't panic. just put your hand down, stand between the two wrestlers. Don't back away and go somewhere else. Stand between the two wrestlers. Wait for the chairman. Once the chairman is prepared, and he will look at you and either raise a paddle, white paddle, or raise his hand and acknowledge, saying, yep, I'm ready, let's go. Then you bring the wrestlers together and start the bout. Now, before you blow the whistle, ensure you can see in between these two wrestlers. As they come together, okay, you want to make sure you can see between their foreheads and their faces, because you're looking for the quick headbutt. You're looking for the thumb in the eye. You're looking for that very quick, sharp punch that's not going to come from left field, but it's going to come in real tight, and it's going to really sting and hurt somebody. And you're looking to see between those wrestlers so you can spot that and stop the bout immediately if it happens. Now, don't back into the judge when starting. On the right side of the screen here, you're going to see I have the referee. My referee friend here is up here ready to go. Okay, he's in position. The chairman has now said, let's go. Once he gets the wrestlers going, gets them in position, when he blows the whistle, he steps away, kind of steps out, away from the wrestlers. Don't back into the judge, because what you're doing is when you back straight into the judge, you're boxing the judge out. So you bring the wrestlers in, shake hands, you're stepping out, either side, but now the referee has a good view, the chairman has a good view, and then by you stepping out, you still are in close enough view, you're still close enough relation to the wrestlers, you can still see between them in case there is a punch or a headbutt or whatnot. But don't come back into the judge. I see a lot of referees do that, and as a judge, it's frustrating because you effectively taken me out of the bout in that critical part. So you're here, step either to the right or step to the left, thus allowing the referee or the judge to see in between the wrestlers and assist you at the start of the first period or the second period. So we've started the bout at the first period and in the second period after 30-second break. But what happens on restarting the bout after there's been an interruption? They've gone into the zone and haven't done anything. They've gone into the protection area. They've been on the mat for a while, and the top wrestler has not been able to turn or do anything with them. All right. If they go into the protection area or in the zone, they're out in here, and you're out here visually, you're out here refereeing. Okay. When they go back to the center, you accompany them back to the center. Stay out of the hotbed of coals. All right. But don't stay out in the protection area out here and start the match, start the bout. Okay. You want to move in very closely to the wrestlers. So you bring them in, you're out here, you come in, you're now in here. You're in here pretty tight. You don't want to be so close that they're gonna bump into you, but you want to be close enough that these wrestlers feel your presence, that you're there, you're looking, and you want them to maintain good sportsmanship. Too many times I see referees get in the habit of sitting out here. They'll be out here somewhere and they'll call the bout. They'll start the bout. Well, from clear out here in the protection area, right in here, this little area here, a good quick shot, a nice punch, and you're not going to be able to see it, and neither are you going to be able to react to it and get in there in a timely manner to stop a fight or something like that happens. Again, you want to move in close. So if you're out here, the wrestlers come in, you want to move in close, stay out of the hotbed of coals so you're not blocking the view of the chairman or the judge. It's important because you want to make sure your teammates are assisting you. Also, when you move in, You want to move in a position here where when you're talking to the wrestlers. You don't want to come up into a position here where now you're talking into the wrestler's backside. When you speak to a wrestler, you want to make sure you're in a position that they can hear you. Now, I understand, you're thinking, going, holy crap, Tim, they're right there. They should be able to hear me. Well, when you're talking into their backside, they don't hear you. But when you move yourself into a position where now you're talking in here or in here where you're talking to their front side, they tend to hear you and they tend to respond to you, to respond to your commands on what you want to do. So as much as possible, try to prevent, when you're commanding the wrestlers or moving in and telling them something, that you're not moving into their backside and talking to their back. Okay, because they're not going to hear you, or they're just going to disregard you. So make sure you move into a position where they can see you, not see you, but they can hear you. You're talking to the front of the wrestler. You're actually outside looking in. What am I saying? Well, simply stated, you want to position yourself outside, out in this area here, not in the hotbed of coals, but in the outside of the central wrestling area. This is the central wrestling area here. You want to either be at the central edge of the central wrestling area or in the zone. Me, personally, I like being out here in the protection area. I feel more comfortable out there, and it gives me a better view. But somewhere in this area here, outside, looking inside at the action. You don't want to be in here. I've seen too many referees at times get sucked into the action, and they get pulled in here, and it becomes very, very difficult for them to make calls, especially in Greco, when they are so tight on the wrestlers that they can't see the entire scope of the action because of their position so close to the wrestlers. Also, you don't want to stand and position yourself in the middle of the mat. I've seen this a few times where a referee will position themselves in the center, and as the action goes away from them, they're stuck. Now you're inside looking out. So when it comes to making calls on the boundary, it becomes very difficult because you're not in a good position. So don't stand in the middle. You'll be in the middle for a short amount of time when you start the action, but after the action, when you start the bout, move to the outside so you can referee outside looking in. Now, you don't want to get so close. You want to be close enough that you're comfortable and they can hear you, but you don't want to get so close to the wrestlers that you get kicked. So if you're out in the outside, you're out here, and you need to speak to a wrestler to open no fingers or something, move in, make your call, and then retreat back to the outside. Okay, you don't want to hover in here, because as soon as you do, they're going to come into you and you're going to get hit, you're going to get run over, because wrestlers are somewhat unpredictable and they can be very explosive, and if you're too close to them, you're going to get run over, get kicked, or worse, you're going to get hurt. So stay back either at the edge of the zone, in the zone, or for my position, just on the edge of the protection area. Stay back so you can see the entire action sequence. In other words, you're refereeing from outside looking in. Okay? It's very important. Anticipate. You need to anticipate the direction of the action. You essentially, as a referee on the mat, you're wrestling with the wrestlers. You're evaluating, you're analyzing, you're seeing what setups they're using. Based on the setups, you should have an indication or an understanding of the sport that you have a good idea that they're setting this up, they're working this setup. I think I know where they're going with this or what they're going to do. So you need to anticipate the direction of the action. You want to work the short side of the mat. So in our slide here, our wrestlers are on this side of the mat. We want to work the short side. Okay, as soon as they get near the edge, you're right there working on the short side. You don't want to be over here when the wrestlers are over here, the long side of the mat, or the wrong side of the mat. It's very difficult for you to make good calls when you're on the wrong side of the mat. So always work the short side in relation to the wrestlers, okay? When the action moves away from you, all right, in our slide here, in the slide here, our action moved away from me. I'm here, and my action moved, I'm in quadrant 1. My action moved down into quadrant 3. Let me draw my quadrants there. Move down into quadrant 3. Okay, I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk. Let me say that one more time. I'm going to walk briskly, and I'm going to cut off the mat. You don't need to circumnavigate the mat to try to get into position. By the time you circumnavigate the mat, you're going to be out of position. And the wrestlers, the score is going to occur, and you're not going to be able to see it. What you want to do is, as the wrestlers are moving in position, I can move right behind the wrestlers as they're moving. I can cut across the central wrestling area, and I can put myself in position so I have a good view of the action. Now, as I cut across the central wrestling area here, I put myself in position in quadrant 3. The chairman is there waiting. He's watching. I'm now in a position. I'm in a position to work with the chairman in quadrant 3. And as soon as this action happens, we are in a perfect position as teammates to hopefully make the right call. Now, too many times I see referees that actions happen, they move away from us, and we tend, sometimes youngsters specifically, want to run across that mat. Never run. There's no need for you to run. If you're running, you're out of position, okay? And like I said earlier, you don't need to circumnavigate the mat. Cut the mat off to get yourself in the proper position. Walk briskly. Cutting off the mat will put you in proper position, and then you are in a good position, like I say, to work with either your teammate, the chairman, or your teammate, the judge. Level changing. Now, very similar to what I talked about in the previous slide about moving from the action, moving from one quadrant to another. You need to move your position and move with the wrestlers into the same quadrant. Level changing is very similar. When the action changes levels, so should you. Now, this becomes very important in Greco-Roman. When a wrestler begins a lift or a throw and they start to go up, you need to go down. You need to lower your level down to the mat so you're eye level with the legs, and you're able to see leg foul or some type of illegal action that's going on down below the waist. Too many times I see referees get enamored or hung up on watching a big throw, and they miss leg fouls. So in our picture here, if we don't lower our level and we get caught watching this big throw, Andy Bisick is throwing blue wrestler here. We get caught looking at this. We don't look below the hips. We don't watch the legs, and we miss this leg foul. So as Andy starts to go up, as he's going up to make this throw, I'm going to come down, lowering my level. So my head is down low, where I now have eye level view of the legs. I don't care what happens up here, because once they get in this position, folks, this is going to take care of itself. This area here will take care of itself. I'm looking here below the hips. I'm watching those legs, and I can see this right there. So if Andy is successful and makes the throw, I've got a caution in 2, and then whatever the points for the throw. If he doesn't throw, and I know why he doesn't complete the throw, because there's this hook here on the knees that I saw because I lowered my level. So lowering your level will enable you to see these fouls and see illegal actions, especially in Greco, where you're not caught watching up here and missing a very important piece of the bout right there. Now, if the action, like in our previous slide, it moves away from you very quickly, and sometimes, folks, you're going to get caught out of position. These guys are going to explode. You're going to anticipate they're moving to the right. They start to move to the right. You begin to move to get into position because you think they're going there. And then, holy cow, they just blast going to the left, and you're caught. You're hung out to dry. You don't need to run. Don't panic. You don't need to chase the action. Just turn, stop, lower your level, and just watch the action. Now, I spoke before about refereeing outside, inside looking out, but this is the rare exception that, hey, you got caught, and it happens to all of us. You got caught. Just turn, lower your level, and then make the call, because guess what? You've got 2 other teammates there, and the judge and the chairman to help you out. But listen, do not run and chase the action. Just lower your level. Very, very easy. Moving with a purpose. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article called Moving with a Purpose. It is posted on the USWA webpage on the bottom right, I think it is. It's a pretty good read. It's only 2 or 2.5 pages long. It gets into the analysis of moving around the mat. And essentially what the title says is moving with a purpose. Why are you moving? What are you doing? Why are you moving your hands? Why are you moving your words? Why are you moving your feet? Why are you moving from point A to point B? Things to analyze. It's a fairly detailed and somewhat comprehensive article. I highly recommend as a supplement to what we talked about today to help fill in some of those holes if there are. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to hear what you think and what you've got to say. Okay, well, that completes this webinar program where we discussed referee mechanics, where they focus on basic movement on the mat for referees. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, as we strive for technical proficiency, please don't overlook movement on the mat. Hopefully, through this webinar, you see that movement is very important. How we move, where we move, our movement in relationship to our chairman, our judge, the wrestlers, and the clock. That movement is a fundamental foundation for our technical proficiency and our sound mechanics. And the better you are and the more knowledgeable you are on movement on the mat and positioning on the mat, it will only make you a better referee. I want to thank each of you for joining me and viewing this webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send me an email or contact USWA. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, thank you very much, and I will see you all on the mats. Thank you.